I've been following the JonBenet Ramsey case ever since it happened in 1996. It's been near and dear to my heart for many years. I've also followed it for a long time on Web Sleuths. It's always amazed me, and I've asked this a couple times on Web Sleuths, why is it nobody thinks John did it? Everybody says, oh, Burke did it or Patsy did it. Very rarely do you hear people say John did it. In my opinion, John did it. We'll just get that right out of the gate. I've been wanting to make this video for so long. I've finally got a few minutes to do it. So I'm going to kind of break it down and why I believe the way I do. First, I want to talk about her date of death, 12/25/1996. To me, the date is very suspect. To me, it's like a great big red flag. If this date of death was true, we know they got home around 10 o'clock from doing all their little Christmas outings and the party and handing out gifts. So they supposedly got home around 10. So for her to have died that day means that she died within 2 hours of getting home. Which, if you go by what the Ramseys say, means that an intruder was in their house and killed her while they were all probably still awake. Now that just doesn't even make sense. Now, you know the parents didn't go right to sleep as soon as they got home. So if she died before or at midnight, it just doesn't even add up. Now, I'm not saying she didn't. Maybe, how do they know? How did they come up with this date? Maybe they're the ones, maybe they know how it happened, right? Other people have said that they just used that date because it was more dramatic, that they wanted it to be easier for the public to remember. I don't buy any of that. I've been taking a lie detection course, which is fascinating, by the way. And there's a thing where our brains don't want to lie. They're not wired to lie. So when we lie, it's hard for our brain to do it. So the truth will leak out in different ways. I just wonder if this date of death is one of the ways the truth leaked out. It's always been very suspect to me. I have a daughter the same age as JonBenet. I think that's why this always stuck with me too. It just always... And here's the thing. A lot of people that are coming to the JonBenet Ramsey story weren't around when this happened in real time. Now, many like me are, but many aren't. And I think you have a different perception if you weren't there when this was happening in real time. Because now, if you're getting into this case now, all you have to go by is going back and reading through articles. When for those of us that lived through it in real time, it was on the news, it was everywhere. So I think that comes with some of the difference in perception, depending on when you came into this, started looking at this case. The first thing I want to talk about is Patsy Ramsey and her sisters and her background. In my opinion, her and her sister were definitely sexually molested. Now, it's just my opinion, allegedly. They give a lot of the signs of a sexually abused women. There's a lot of things that Patsy's sisters would talk about that most people would consider inappropriate. I can't go too deep into some of this because YouTube doesn't like it. But for those of you that have been into the case, you know what I'm talking about. They've said some really inappropriate things before the death of JonBenet, which goes hand in hand with previously being abused. So in my opinion, Patsy and her sister were probably abused. So what does this do? It sets her up for another man that abuses. I know Detective Art, she had done some work in child sexual abuse. So she was experienced in this. This wasn't new to her. She said something I thought was so interesting, I'm just going to paraphrase. She said that in cases of incest, the entire family plays a part. And that is so true, because everybody plays their part in it. That part can be looking the other way, keeping the secret, acting like it's not happening. These are very common things in a family that has incest going on. Everybody plays a part. The other thing is, I find a lot of people, like on Web Sleuths, can't wrap their mind around the whole incest thing. I think that and the sex games aspect of the story with the garrote, which many say it wasn't really a garrote, but we'll just call it that for lack of a better word. These things have always gone on. Incest knows no income level, no education level, or anything else. Incest happens in every income level and education level. And yes, it happened then, it happened before that time, it happens now, it's always been around. So we can't just, people just get so horrified by it that, a parent couldn't have done this to her, but a parent could have, and it happens every day, unfortunately. You just can't be so naive to think that these kind of things don't go on. The other thing is, the doctors that looked at her all agreed that she had been sexually molested before that night and that night. There was like 3 or 4 that all agreed. Some of these were like the very top experts in child sexual abuse. So these were some pretty big, powerful names. And I just don't think you're going to get that many people to agree on something unless it's true. Here's my other thing. I'm not sure how many people know, but about 2 years after this happened, after John and Patsy and Burke had moved to Atlanta, they have their new house over there. All of a sudden, John calls 911 and says he had an intruder in his house. He got in a fist fight with him. The guy took some stuff. Needs the police out there right away. Well, what are the chances of that happening? That just is crazy. To me, this is what cemented it for me that John did it, was when this story broke. Number one, he says he pulled up in his driveway and there was a strange car in the driveway. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. Nobody else is home, just John, of course. And instead of doing like a normal average person would do, which would be probably call 911 and not go in the house, he decides to just go in the house. So he says he interrupts this intruder. They get in a fist fight. The intruder ends up locking John in the bathroom and tying the bathroom door shut with a rope on the outside. Which, come on, that doesn't even make sense. So John says he got himself out and called 911 and got the people out there. Then he says that the guy took clothes. When have you ever heard of a robber taking clothes? That's kind of weird. Kmart jewelry. Come on now. Then he hints that the guy may have stolen some of his guns because his gun safe was not locked. What are the chances? This John, he's just not high security, is he? So let's think about this. You had a child brutally murdered in your home 2 years previous to this. You moved to get away from it or whatever. You get a new house. Once again, you put in a state-of-the-art alarm security system. And once again, you didn't turn it on. Come on, people. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Any normal person that had a child killed in their home would probably be so hyper about security, they would never have it off. They would have it on 24/7. But here we have John Ramsey, who once again forgot to turn on his alarm system. And he says once again the intruder came through the basement door. Then he tries to say that he didn't even want a basement door, but city code made him put one in. And so then he even says during an interview, see, it can happen twice. No, John, it doesn't happen twice. It just doesn't. And of course, he claims the man was black because of course, he would be black. To me, this cemented in my mind that John did it because this story is so ludicrous. How anybody could believe this, I don't know. I don't feel like the police probably even believed it, but I can't prove that. But can you imagine the police being like, oh my God, really? That didn't happen. The other thing was this coincided with John having to give a deposition for a defamation lawsuit brought against him by one of the detectives. So I think he was going for a 1-2 whammy here. He thought it would convince people that he didn't have anything to do with killing JonBenet because he could prove that an intruder came in again. And 2, I think he thought it'd help him in his defamation lawsuit. This is the kind of craziness that, John's not a normal kind of guy. I'm not saying he's not highly intelligent, but you have to wonder, we know now that the grand jury indicted both John and Patsy Ramsey. Here's what I think. I think they indicted John because they know he's the one that was molesting her and accidentally killed her. I think they indicted Patsy because she knew that he was molesting JonBenet and didn't do anything to stop it. That's my theory, allegedly. So here we have John who's gotten away with this for all these years. And all these people still thinking Burke did it. Which just flabbergasts me. I don't see any way Burke did this. To me, this has John written all over it. I think he got Patsy to write the ransom note for sure. Because he wasn't going to write it. He wasn't going to put his handwriting on that. But this is what I'm saying. Patsy Ramsey knew, she had to have known, in my opinion, that he was molesting JonBenet. I think Burke probably knew it too. Like I said, you can't keep a secret like that when you have people living in a house together. Almost everybody ends up knowing and they just all look the other way. So I'm sure this life that Burke was brought up with, having his... Number one, having his sister molested, then having her murdered, then having it go so public. I'm sure that he's got a lot of issues that he has to deal with. I think that's why he was strange on Dr. Phil, and I think he's kind of hidden himself away for so many years. Whoever put him on that show was just a fool to put him on there. But I truly don't feel Burke had anything to do with it other than he knew what was going on, and he may have even blocked that out. He was so young. But it amazes me how many people continue to say Burke did it, but won't even consider that it could have been John. And John just makes the most sense. Here's the other thing. And for me, this should clinch it for anybody. If you go watch, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, Cyril Wecht. He's a famous forensic doctor. He's got a video here on YouTube that explains the whole thing so eloquently. And I'm going to put a link to it in the description. So I'll just paraphrase it for you here because I truly believe in my heart, I've always believed this is what happened. I think in my opinion, John was playing a sex game with JonBenet with like I said, we'll call it a garrote because I can't think of a better word for it. I think he was playing this sex game with her, and like the doctor says, on a child, it's very easy to hit that nerve on the side of their neck and make them pass out. So I think that's what happened. I think she passed out, but I think John thought he killed her. So I think he was panicking and thought she was already dead. So I think he took something, probably the flashlight, hit her over the head to make it look like somebody else did it. Because he knew they were going to know she was molested. So I think he got the flashlight, hit her over the head, and then realized she wasn't dead yet. Which was probably horrible for everybody because I don't believe that he intended to kill her. I truly believe it was an accident. So I think after that, he probably had to get Patsy involved. And he probably had to go get her and tell her what he did. Now, I believe all this happened in JonBenet's bedroom. I have no doubt it happened in her bedroom. I think that's why so many things were missing from her bedroom. I do think he went and hid her. I think this lines up too with the next day when nobody's finding JonBenet, and I think it's driving him crazy. He wants them to find her, but nobody has found her because nobody knows about the weird little wine cellar room. So I think, in my opinion, that's why he went down there and found her, because he couldn't take it anymore. He wanted it over. I think this is also why you see her wrapped up in her favorite blanket. She's got her little Barbie nightgown wrapped up in that blanket too, which I think is what she's wearing when this happened because it has blood on it. So I think then he brings her up the stairs, and then he makes sure everything gets contaminated. And unfortunately, the Boulder police didn't have enough people there to help the other detectives, so everything was contaminated. The thing that really breaks my heart too, and I know once a person passes away, they don't care what happens to their body, but it's still sad to me that once her body was brought up, everybody left. They left that poor little girl there all alone. The coroner came and looked at her. He came late, then he left, and still she sat in that house all by herself. And then you had John on the phone trying to get his pilot to put him on a plane and get him out of there, which again, he wanted out of there because he knew he was going to be a suspect. He wanted to get the hell out of Dodge is what he wanted to do. So to me, this ties up everything. All the loose ends are tied up if you look at the fact that, in my opinion, John Ramsey did this. Again, I don't think he meant to do it, and I think it's really hard for people to believe about incest and sex games. But if you go back and look too, the first doctors always said it was sex games. They've seen this before. This is not new to them. The one I'm talking about with the YouTube video too said absolutely it was a sex game gone wrong. So I think to us lay people, we don't want to believe that this stuff goes on, but it goes on every day, unfortunately. So I just had to get this off my chest and say, in my opinion, John did it. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Feel free to disagree with me as long as you do it nicely. And that's it for today. Thanks.